Welcome to the Purity for Life podcast, helping men and women live with sexual integrity through Jesus Christ. For more information about this podcast and other great resources, visit purityforlife.me. Well, hey everyone, welcome to episode 111 of the Purity for Life podcast. My name is Frank Honus, and I'm glad you could check out the podcast this weekend. Hope you're doing well, coming off of Thanksgiving holiday, right? And just was an amazing Thanksgiving for my family, and hope that you had a great turkey day, and hopefully it was more than just about turkey for you. It was about, the community, the idea of giving back to God everything that He's given us, right? And all the gifts that He has lavished upon us. I know for me personally, I really tried to kind of keep that eternal perspective, if you will, that perspective of what really matters, during Thanksgiving. And so I pray that was that you had a great Thanksgiving holiday. And so kind of coming off the Thanksgiving holiday, I wanted to do a podcast specifically on Thanksgiving and kind of in recovery, if you will, because it's so important. I think our recovery is so important, especially during the holidays. And I just recently had a conversation with a friend, and our last episode, the Purity Survival Guide for the holidays, Jeff Fisher and I talked about some very, very important tips and kind of, strategies for staying pure over the holidays, for keeping that purity perspective, and just being careful, being wise, being aware of your triggers. And so the holidays are such a critical time to really be on your toes and on guard. And not that we need to always be in a defensive posture, but we need to always be offensive in our fight, in our battle for sexual purity. So I want to talk this week about 5 people that you should be thankful for in recovery. So 5 people that you should be thankful for in recovery. Again, kind of coming off of the Thanksgiving holiday, I thought it was really important that we talk about some of these perspectives and really take a step back and realize that there are many people in your lives that you should be thankful for, that you and I, as we walk in purity, as we walk in recovery and sobriety, that we need to remember that matter in our lives. And so as I was reflecting on my life, I just kind of jotted down a list of people that really have played an integral role in my recovery journey. And number one, it's my spouse, right? It's my wife, Tracy. And I think that first of all, as we journey through our recoveries, we need to think about and be grateful for and be thankful for our spouses. For many of us, this was actually the person that probably either discovered us or exposed us in our addiction. And that might be a painful memory for you, but thank God for that, right? Thank God that you were found. I mean, the more honest, I'm sure, looking back, the more honest way would have been to come out and to share your struggles. But thank God that we had someone to really step in and, for many of us, give us an ultimatum. Why did it take that? Why does it take that ultimatum in our lives? I don't know. But I know for many of us that happened through our spouse, and that happened through, either our wives or our husbands. And so we need to really be thankful for them. Our spouses carry just a tremendous weight of responsibility on their shoulders. Many of them carry lots of pain from our addiction, from our struggles. And so we need to remember that, and we need to be grateful for their support, for them cheering us on. Now, I realize and understand that many of us, or there are many men out there who your wives have walked away from the marriage, and your wives have decided that they can't be a part of your life for a season, and maybe some of you for the rest of their lives. And I don't want to mention this as a source of pain, but if your spouse is still in your life and still walking with you through your recovery, you need to be grateful. You need to be thankful. And remember that we as men, especially, need to be nurturing their pain. We need to be nurturing their struggles and their triggers that they feel as well, because our spouses are almost walking in a kind of recovery themselves. I mean, we're walking in recovery from sex addiction, from pornography or masturbation, but our wives are walking in recovery. Our spouses are walking in recovery from pain, a lot of pain. And so we need to be sensitive to that. I don't know where I would be today without the prayers, the love, and the support of my wife, Tracy. I don't know where I would be. I don't know if I would. I just don't know. Who knows where I would be, whether I'd still be deep into addiction or have woken up. But I know that my wife was a incredible force for good in helping me to come out from the darkness into the light. And so the reality we have to be aware of here is that we need to be thankful and grateful for our spouses in our lives, not just for what they do for us, but especially for their presence in our recovery and their support. And maybe some of your wives out there, if you're listening, you're a man, you're listening, your wives are triggered. Maybe they're triggered by different things, and they're at a different place than maybe you're at. We still need to be sensitive to that. So here's the action step. We're going to have an action step for each one of these this week. These 5 people that we need to be thankful for. So number one, the first action step we need to take for our spouses is we need to be honest, be sensitive, and be proactive. We need to be honest with our struggles. We don't need our wives having to ask us and be police, if you will. They don't need to be finding things that we're not telling them about. We need to totally be transparent with them and honest. And you and your wife need to talk about what that looks like. What are the things that in your marriage, in your relationship, you need to share with each other? You need to talk about with your wife. But number one, you need to be honest. You need to be sensitive to her triggers, sensitive to her pain. Don't allow yourself to become angry and defensive when she asks you how you're doing, and be proactive. I think this is a huge one. A question that you can even ask yourself is, what can I do this week to help you walk through your struggles and triggers? That would be a great question to write down, to ask your wife, to text your wife, to email your wife, to talk to your wife about. What can I do this week, honey, to help you walk through your struggles and your triggers? Again, it's making this not just about ourselves in recovery, but about our spouses, and remembering that they as well are walking through a lot of pain and a lot of struggle. So number one, it's our spouse. Number two person that we need to be thankful for in our recovery is our accountability partners. These are the buddies that are checking in with us. Either they're checking in with us or we're checking in with them. But there's this mutual relationship and understanding of of care, of concern, and these people in your life, these accountability partners. Accountability partner, that sounds a little bit sterile, a little bit, I think. They need to be more than just, and I put in here, I was thinking about this, purity cops, right? These don't just need to be people that, are, making sure you're doing right at all times and you're not, stepping on a crack and whatever. These aren't cops that are at your doorstep every single second of every single day. But they do need to be safe, healthy people who care about your life. So think about those safe, healthy people that do care about your life and develop deep relationships with these people. I'd say at least daily to begin with in your recovery, but especially weekly in your recovery. Myself, even at 5 years in recovery, it's a very, very important thing that in some way that I touch base with someone at least once a week if I can, and sometimes I don't always do that. But even as a man who's got a few years of sobriety underneath his belt, I still need that support. I still need that accountability. So, accountability partners ask the tough questions, but they also never are the kind of people that are going to think that you're weird, right? They're going to know your struggles. They're going to know what you deal with, and they're going to be encouraging. They're going to be helpful, but they're also going to be challenging. They're not going to just allow you to slip and slide by if you are kind of being shady in your recovery. They're going to challenge you. They're going to get in your face when they need to, and they're going to ask you the tough questions. And so, like I said, good accountability partners offer daily, weekly phone calls, meetings, text messages, emails, whatever you determine you need to set up in your life that's going to best help you in your sobriety and in your recovery. So here's the action step, okay? Be consistent with your accountability partner. Be consistent with your accountability partner. Ask to be challenged, not just encouraged. Encouragement is so important. Believe me, I don't want you to, don't get me wrong here. We all need encouragement. All of us. We need encouragement in our struggles and in our recovery. But we also need a good, healthy dose of challenge as well. And we need people in our lives that are going to challenge us, that are going to love us enough to kind of, rattle our chains if we need it. You know what I'm saying? So we need a challenge, but we also need encouragement. So that's the number 2 person. Number 3 that we need to be grateful for in our recovery is our support group or support groups, depending. Support groups, this is the place where we find community with other guys who struggle the way that we do. Plain and simple. Hopefully, you are plugged into a weekly meeting, and whether that's a face-to-face or an online group, that's my prayer. Is that's really where the community begins in your life and in your walk and your recovery. I was a part of a face-to-face live group for over 2 years, and I am now actually a leader of an online group. And a group for guys who struggle with sexual addictions. And so you can kind of determine, sometimes it's hard to find a group that's a community group that's live, a support group that is actual face-to-face in your area. That's why there's so many great ministries out there that offer just top-notch live support groups. We've talked about that on the podcast before, and I'm gonna mention those in just a second here for resources. But an interesting thing about support groups is that it's a setting that helps us to remember that you're not alone in your addiction. You are not alone. If there were ever a tool in my recovery that helped me to know and unlocked a lot of fear and a lot of trepidation and anxiety in my life, it was the support group and just hearing these guys' stories, hearing their struggles, and knowing that I was not alone, not by myself. And so accountability relationships even can kind of stem and be forged in these settings too. And out of these support groups, these 5, 7, 10 guys, you can find a guy or two and make relationship with them, get to know them. Maybe you become an accountability partner to another guy, and that helps you mutually and beneficially. What I found also is in the accountability setting, I was able to, after a period of time and growth and healing, able to kind of step up and become a leader to other men and really help other men. I decided and said, I want to help guys. I don't want to just be, the guy who's always, looking for help and never really takes that further step to get the help, but also sow and invest into other guys' lives. So it's a great setting. Support groups are great settings to find that connection, realize that you're not by yourself, find that community, find accountability relationships, and also you explore your potential leadership as a man who can help other guys. So the action step for this one, action step for support groups this week is, if you haven't joined a support group, if you've never been a part of a support group, I really, really want you to consider becoming a part of one. Many times the live support groups, face-to-face ones that you can find in your community, are absolutely free to go to. Many of them just take donations. I would specifically, and this is not to degrade, this particular ministry. Celebrate Recovery is a fantastic ministry, but This is a podcast that talks about sexual integrity, sexual addiction, sexual purity. If you are specifically struggling with a pornography addiction, masturbation, some kind of sexual addiction, you need to find that specific support group for that. I wouldn't necessarily just find a men's Bible study or Celebrate Recovery or something to that effect. You need something a little bit more specialized, a little bit more focused to what your needs are. So consider finding a support group. And, if you can't find one in your community, consider one that's online. There's many ministries you can find that are online, that you can connect with an online support group. You can literally find a time that meets for you and attend the support group in your jammies if you want. Drink your coffee or whatever. You can do that. I am a leader of a support group through X3 Groups, which is a ministry of Triple X Church, and you can find them at x3groups.com. Also, my friend Jeff Fisher, who I talked to last week, runs some really great support groups online, and you can find him at puritycoaching.com. There's some great support groups there, or even consider forming one on your own. I've even considered this on myself, but I just have never seemed to find the time to be able to do that. But forming a support group of your own, finding even 2 or 3 other guys that you can, weekly meet with on a weekly basis. Maybe it's at your house or at the local coffee shop or whatever. Find a corner and a nook, and maybe you probably with these kind of sensitive issues and matters, you want to kind of keep your volume down a little bit, or maybe it's not a public place like that. It's not a great place to meet, but find something that you can connect with, you can plug into, and maybe consider forming one on your own. The next person, and I specifically put person, I know this might sound a little different, that we need to be thankful for in our recovery, grateful for, is pain. Now, when I say the word pain, you probably don't think about pain as being a person, right? I mean, how can it doesn't really, how is pain an actual person? Well, this one is different, I know, but it's very a significant area in our recovery journey. It's a very significant topic, and pain can actually be one of your greatest teachers if you allow it. I want you just to think back for a second, just take a little, jump into your time machine for 10 seconds and maybe think about, I'm not trying to bring up a bunch of stuff, but the painful places in your life that have really led you down the wrong paths, have led you down porn addiction, and to have really caused you and contributed to you reaching out to having sex, sleeping around with people, looking at pornography, acting out, masturbating, reaching out for something. All of us who are sexual strugglers, there's absolutely one thing we do have in common that brings us all together, is that we are men who have been broken by painful things in our lives, and because of that, to try to substitute for that pain, we've reached out for these other sources and to find comfort and to find relief and find peace, if you will, but we've never found that, right? Because it's just a vicious cycle. But if you allow it, like I said, pain can be one of your greatest teachers if you let it be. The sad reality is that far too many people, try to just run from pain and just try to do the bare minimum, exactly the minimum bare amount, what it takes to walk in recovery. And this is such a sad thing. I've seen this before, and I continue to see this within men, that and it's so sad because we as men we're such task managers, and we're such we want to sweep things under the rug. We want to get things done, and I've met men all throughout my recovery who care more about the how-tos than the whys. And when I say how to versus why, we care more about how do we change our behavior. And again, I've mentioned this before. This is very important. We've got to change our behavior. We've got to change our habits. But we care more about the how. We care more about the practical than we do the why. Why do we struggle the way we do? It's not enough until I begin to understand the whys in my life. True healing would have never taken place if I had just gone after, how do I stop? How do I stop looking at porn? If I just put filters up, if I just do this, these are all just systems. And these are very good systems to have in place, but they're systems at the end of the day. They are systems and nothing more. And if we don't go back and dig down to the deep, painful places in our lives, the things that pull us towards addiction, that pull us towards those websites, that pull us towards the people that we put ourselves around, that we really can't find healing and wholeness. And so here is the major, major action step for this one. I really want to challenge you to dig down deep this holiday season and explore the painful places in your life. Most likely, these are the places that cause you to run to porn, masturbation, and acting out, right? And all those kinds of things. Maybe even consider, and there's no shame in any of these things, consider finding a therapist or a counselor that can help you in your struggles and really help you to find those. Find that healing and really unlock some of those painful places that you never really considered before. So allow pain to be a teacher for you. Don't allow it to be something you run from. Because remember, until we address painful things, if you scrape your elbow or whatever, or you cut yourself somehow, until you address that wound, until you address that pain, and it's gonna lie open. It'll get infected, right? It won't heal properly. And all those things. We've got to tend to those things in our lives. We've got to really tend to that pain and see that those things get healed up. And then the last person that we need to be thankful for in our recovery is God and His Son Jesus. And quite simply, as far as I'm concerned, in my recovery, God and Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are the ones who matter most in my recovery. God has a person that He wants you to become. He has a man that He wants you to become. He has a woman that He wants you to become. Whether you're a man or woman watching this, He has a specific person that He wants you to be. And until we get this stuff out of our lives and find healing, we'll never discover our true purpose. We'll never really truly walk in God's will for our lives. And until you and I surrender fully to Christ, we'll never experience ultimate healing. And that doesn't mean that we live in perfection. Please, again, hear me. That means that it doesn't mean a struggle-free life. That just means that our lives are ultimately controlled by the one who created us, by the one who matters most. There's so many successful secular organizations that help men with their purity. Many of them out. There's some really great ones. I mean, they talk about the brain science behind addiction, but I've never known someone to have really achieved long-term sobriety and recovery without God, apart from God. I just don't think it's possible. And so the action step here for this one is to ask for a new heart this week. In this holiday season, ask for a new mind. My wife and I even prayed this today in our devotion time. My wife prayed this over me that God would place a shield around my heart, my mind, and my eyes. I think that is so incredibly, incredibly powerful, and I thank her for praying that. But we need to ask for a new heart in this struggle. We cannot beat sex addiction. We cannot beat, pornography addiction on our own. We just are not strong enough, and we'll fail every single time. And so I want to read a scripture to you in closing, kind of wrapping up the podcast this week. It's from Psalm 51, and it says, create in me, this is verse 10, create in me a clean heart, O God, renew a loyal spirit within me. Do not banish me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me, but restore to me the joy of your salvation and make me willing to obey you. Right? So create in me a clean heart, renew a loyal spirit with me, restore to me that joy. And there's so many things that Scripture speaks to in terms of our recovery. Another version says, create pure thoughts in me and make me faithful again. And so that's Psalm 51, 10, verse 10, 11, and 12. I hope you'll take a second. Make that your prayer this week, that God would create in you a new heart, that it would really begin with His hand in your life. And again, this is a Christ-centered, biblically based ministry, the Purity for Life. And I like to say it every single week that we exist. Purity for Life exists to help men and women live with sexual integrity through Jesus Christ. It's not through us alone, but it is through Jesus. And so I pray that you'll hear that this week. I pray that you will be encouraged by those things this week. That, since we are coming off of Thanksgiving, that we'll remain in this season of thankfulness and gratefulness and realize that, especially as people in recovery, as men and women in recovery, primarily men probably, that we should be thankful that there are people and places and nouns, that we said last week with Jeff, but people that we need to be thankful for in recovery. And so our spouse, our accountability partners, our support groups, our pain, and last but not least, God and His Son Jesus. So we need to remember those people this week, be thankful for those people this week, and just know that we can't do it on our own. So pray that you have a fantastic Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, this holiday season that we're in, and that seems like there's so much craziness going on. I just pray that you'll be encouraged by that. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Purity for Life this week, the Purity for Life podcast. Appreciate so much your support of this podcast and the website. I do want to encourage you to check out purityforlife.me, which is the website where you can find all this great content and lots of great resources to help you along in your journey for sexual purity. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Frank Honus. We'll see you next week on the Purity for Life podcast.